Hello everyone, this is Dilshani from Literary Genius, and this is the 5th video in our series of analyzing Life of Pi. So today we are going to talk about the second part of the novel, The Pacific Ocean, which extends from chapter 37 to chapter 94. So this is the longest part of the narrative, and it contains details of Pi's journey across the Pacific Ocean after being shipwrecked. Initially, he finds himself in a lifeboat with a hyena, an orangutan and a zebra. Then the hyena kills the zebra and the orangutan. Later, the hyena was killed by Richard Parker, who has been hiding under the tarpaulin. So this section is full of suspense and a lurking sense of danger. And this sense of suspense and danger adds into the adventurous nature of Pi's story. So if someone asks you whether this novel could be called an adventure fiction, yes, you could say yes. And you could use these two literary features to justify your answer: suspense and a sense of lurking danger. In the days after the shipwreck, he forces himself to build a raft, and Pi teaches himself to fish and to survive on the ration hidden on the boat. So at the same time, he establishes his superiority over Richard Parker, playing the role of an alpha male. During their aimless drifting across the Pacific Ocean, Pi and Parker encounter another sailor who actually tries to kill Pi, and in turn killed by Richard Parker. So by now, Pi and Richard Parker have formed a unique kind of a mutual understanding between them. They make sure that they stick to their territories in the lifeboat, and Pi actually had a chance to kill Richard Parker, but still he didn't. Perhaps it's because that he believes that Richard Parker has a soul. There's a kind of a very strange connection between them. And the way Richard Parker responds to Pi reminds us that despite being animalistic, Richard Parker isn't the stereotypical beast we would expect him to be. And somehow their two natures kind of become paralleled as they continue to interact with each other. For example, Pi now kills unflinchingly without any remorse, sucking out the blood from turtles and eating raw fish. And Richard Parker, on the other hand, as we find him, is unusually tolerant of Pi. So that two natures somewhat become parallel to each other. They also encounter a carnivorous island out of which they manage to escape. And finally, they drift onto the shore of Mexico, where Richard Parker loops off to the jungle without a backward glance. And this may be the most emotional part of the story. Full of despair that his companion for 227 days left him without a single backward glance, Pi cries his way to the hospital. And he was found by a group of humans when he was lying on the beach by himself. So this is the original the sequence of events in the second part, the Pacific Ocean. Now I will focus on the major themes we could find in this section. The most predominant theme we come across in this section is survival, or the will to survive. This actually runs throughout the novel. So initially Pi faces a lot of difficulties in his life because of his name. So he was struggling with his name and trying to redefine it. And later we find him shipwrecked and again struggling to survive. Despite all these setbacks, both small and large, he faces them very creatively. And the desire to conquer one's weaknesses and achieve one's goals through many creative ways make Life of Pi a novel about survival. And the next theme I want to talk about is this relationship between nature and humans, which is another predominant theme in the narrative. And this runs throughout the novel in many different forms. So initially we come across this idea of a zoo in Pondicherry, suggesting that humans are capable of taming and controlling nature at their will. So this is one kind of a relationship between nature and humans. Humans desire to control it as they wish. And later, the relationship between nature and humans take another different shape, and this time it is brought out through Richard Parker's and Pi's friendship during their time on the boat. We have to keep in mind that Pi is capable of controlling Richard Parker as long as he respects Richard Parker and his interests. So although Pi is able to control Richard Parker, he at the same time he has to respect his interests as well. So this is another dimension of this relationship between humans and nature. So because of these two ways of looking at the relationship between nature and humans, we could say that the novel is highlighting the importance of respecting both nature and human intelligence. So when we talk about the relationship between nature and humans, we have to keep in mind that both these are interdependent. For example, Richard Parker and Pi have to depend on each other to make sure that they survive. On the one hand, we have Pi feeding Richard Parker and keeping him alive, and on the other hand we have Richard Parker keeping Pi alive by being his immediate threat and therefore keeping Pi busy with finding food and water, and also being a source of distraction, so he could keep his mind away from thinking about his loss of family and the overall disaster, and this could actually demotivate him to the point of giving up his fight against death. And finally, by being Pi's sole companion, by sharing a common misfortune, so that Pi knows that he is not alone in this battle. So these are the major themes we could find in this section. We talked about two themes actually, the will to survive and the relationship between nature and humans. Now it is up to you to build up connections between these two themes. The discussion actually already revealed that there are connections in various ways. Now try to make these connections more pronounced with more examples. So with that, we come to the end of our 5th video lesson analyzing the themes of the second part of the novel, The Pacific Ocean. So we have a lot to do, lot to think about, and I wish you good luck in your studies, and thanks for watching.